my amazing viewers. Thank you so much for joining me on my program once again. I appreciate you wherever you are connecting from. If you have not subscribed to my channel, please kindly subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell so that you'll be notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you so much and remember blessed. Whenever you look my video, whenever you watch my video, share the video to all platforms. Share it to family and friends. Share it in your WhatsApp group so that people can get information on what is happening in the contraption called Nigeria, mainly against the Biafrans, against the Duduas, against the indigenous people in the contraption called Nigeria. I try as much as possible to set the record straight. I don't preach hate speech. I don't speak against people. I set the record straight. The only important thing I do here is to make sure that the plight of the people remains on the front burner and the world will know the true story of what is going on in the contraption called Nigeria.
What precisely were you hoping to achieve with that work?
Well, it was primarily because we all know the problem with Nigeria. I mean, it's the most popular topic anywhere you go, in airplanes, in waiting rooms, in hospitals, in buses. Everybody knows the problem with Nigeria, including the people who are the problem with Nigeria. So the question is, what is the solution? And what I've tried to do, what I've spent my entire career trying to do, is really to look for a systemic way, not just to tackle the symptoms of the problem with Nigeria, but the root cause of the problem. And you see from the plethora of NGOs we have, and the self-help, the campaigns, and the strikes and everything, everybody knows one problem with Nigeria. And if we solve that one problem, we'll solve the rest. But the key is to find out what the root cause is. And that's what I've really done with the bribe code. And what I did with that video was really to try to link our problem with blood money with the core problem in Nigeria, which is impunity. The fact that somebody who has power can use it for his own purpose and for the purpose of his family and friends limited, and without any significant problem. So we have a few thousand spaces in prisons across the country. We have a few thousand. The capacity, the justice system can only go after a few 100,000 people at the same time. We have 200 million people. And so our problem is how to guarantee to the evildoer in high places that his day will come. And this really is the whole purpose of the bribe code. And I think that was the entire purpose again of the video which I did.
Well, indeed, I mean, anyone who came across that video and watched till the end will eventually see that you talked about bribe code. And, you know, looking at a lot more of your works, I found out that it wasn't just a proposition you've just made. Bribe code, apparently, as an advocacy, has been on in many of your works. You have an entire website for it. And I think you say you've also pushed it across with lawmakers. First, tell us, what is bribe code about?
So bribe code is an attempt to strike at the root of our problem. The fact that Nigeria's budget every year is the beginning of a problem. The fact, even the president complained that about $800 million was $1 billion was added to his budget. So the key thing is people who load the budget and people who sabotage the budget by taking funds designed for public works into private pockets. How do we deal with this core problem? And if we can deal with the problem, we solve the problem of stealing on a grand scale. But apart from that, we also solve another critical problem, which is the problem of the vacancy of people in private, the permanent vacancy in public office across Nigeria. And the mechanism behind the bribe code is actually three main things. The first is to produce information about corruption and abuse of public office. This is done by rewarding whistleblowers and protecting them. So you reward them with a percentage of the funds that are retrieved, and therefore you guarantee that across Nigeria, whatever public service and public office is abused, there will be someone who will provide information. That's the first step. The second step is to punish impunity properly. Right now, if anyone is convicted of an offense, you go through a long process, and if you are, sometimes we have the anathema of people who are convicted of stealing billions, being fined thousands, and being let off even without a jail sentence. So the penalty that is prescribed by the bribe code is for companies that engage in corruption, liquidation. This is across the board for private companies, slight exceptions for public companies. And for individuals who are convicted of this, of abuse of office, over a threshold of, say, $1 million, the punishment is total assets forfeiture. So it's not just what we see now, which is forfeiting the assets that are subject of the corruption, but every asset that is traceable to the individual. So that's the second aspect of the bribe code. The third aspect is probably the most important, which is the aspect of total of universal prosecution, which means that across the country we have 37 attorney generals, the federal attorney general and 36 attorney generals of the state. Now these attorney generals under the bribe code will receive power, equal power to prosecute offenses across the country, which means even when a state has been captured by a godfather, or a group of states has been captured by a cabal of godfathers, you can have a prosecution starting from another club right across the country. And once that happens, we see that no sacred cow will exist in Nigeria. Once that is done, the era of impunity is dead. So with universal competitive prosecution, it means that once the gazetted public offices like the EFCC and ICPC have lost their 30-day window to prosecute, any attorney general in the country can prosecute. And all recoveries that come from that prosecution will go to the state that prosecuted. So this creates a competitive atmosphere, and this creates a situation where we have self-regulation, because if you do not regulate yourself and your business, you are subject to total assets forfeiture. We have privatization of anti-corruption, which means that every Nigerian, that is 200 million Nigerians, are able to compete to ensure that we have a public service and a private service that's free of impunity. And thirdly, we have competitive public prosecution, which means that there is something in it for the state that pursues corruption, anti-corruption measures. So that in a nutshell is what bribe code is all about. I
said the method which you propose in this instance reminds me of the allegory, the story of the rats and the cat. The cat's always eating up the rats, and the rats eventually coming up with a solution to tie a bell around the neck of the cat to notify them of when the cat was coming around. The question then was, who will bell the cat? Which one of the rats will be bold enough to bell the cat? You've made this proposition, and there are questions as to how you're going to push it through, or how anyone is going to push this through at the National Assembly if they're all a part of the political establishment which you're trying to dismantle. How is that being received?
This question, who will bell the cat, is a question for the National Assembly. We have hundreds of people who have taken a mandate of the people to come to the National Assembly. If you, as a member of the National Assembly, is there as a private servant, you are there to feather your own nests for whatever businesses you can make, for whatever profit you can make, for whatever bribes you can collect, it will not be in your interest to push the bribe code. But if you are there as a public servant, if you are there to make a transformative change in Nigeria, to liberate Nigeria from the problems of blood money at the street and blood money is at the top, then it is you who will bell the cat. And this is part of the reason why we have started as a public campaign. Because if Nigerians can understand that it is in their interest, not necessarily in the interest of lawmakers, who may be very happy with the situation as it is, who will be quite happy to come to the National Assembly to cry about ritual murder on the streets, but are not ready to do anything actual about it. It is for the public whose ox is God to take up this campaign and make sure that their representatives in the National Assembly see that they have to do their duty by Nigerians and push for this bill to pass.
Some people will say that part of the challenge is that there hasn't been enough. I mean, you have spoken up in your works about how there's been not sufficient outrage. In fact, you say that there is no outrage for let me see if I can find that particular part about how there is no outrage. Treasury thieves and the apologists and children who should hide their faces in shame. They flaunt golf courses and private jets on social media. But at what cost in human blood? These ill-gotten luxury cars printing on Instagram have an opportunity cost. It is the lives and futures and destinies of compatriots. Where is our outrage? There is none. Those are your words. For some reason, it will seem that we're not able to link, the ritual murderers whom we see every day in the news with those in our political circles, and as such, perhaps there is no outrage. So how are the people supposed to push, for instance, their lawmakers to see the merits in this sort of thing if, for some reason, for lack of a better phrase, we're all involved?
Yes, I think that is also part of the, when Jesus says, he who is innocent should throw the first stone. It seems to tie us all down because we know that our situation is not exactly an ethical situation. But here's a challenge I need to let fellow Nigerians be aware of. Not all corruption is equal. There's a grassroots corruption that is happening because of desperation. There's such a thing as extortion. So, for instance, when you get to the hospital with your daughter and she's about to die and the doctor says, I need a bribe before I can give you blood, that is an example of extortion. And a person who is forced into this nature of corruption should not feel in any way guilty about tackling corruption in high places, because it is the corruption in the office of the medical director that enables corruption at the grassroots, which taints the hands of Nigerians who are, who therefore feel, oh, it's hopeless, we're all corrupt. Now, it is important for us to change our climate of corruption in order to have a chance, not just for ourselves, but for our future. So I challenge all Nigerians. It's time we look at this thing from a systemic situation, not just, oh, I'm also guilty of corrupt activity. We must understand that what's happening today is not necessarily what should happen tomorrow. So we need to take that step to do something transformative to change our climate from a corrupt one where the ethical person is liable to extinction, and change it and convert it to an ethical system where the corrupt person is liable to extinction. So that's the challenge. And I can't say it enough. And this is the reason, for instance, why this campaign is 7-8 years old. Because really you cannot force people. The idea can come out there, but until people are ready for it, it will not fly. So we can watch our country go to the baskets, we can watch the whole country go up in flames. And then after it has burned to ashes, we start building a new one. Or we can do something now and save lives and livelihoods.
Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. My guest tonight is Mr. Chuma Nwokolo, a lawyer, poet, and storyteller. But bribe code is not foolproof. It would seem that you think that this could actually rescue us. Apart from the challenge of trying to get it through, there will still be a few more bottlenecks. For instance, if, someone whistleblows on somebody else, which is a huge component of this, oftentimes I would think that this matters will still have to go through a judicial process, wouldn't they?
Yes, it is foolproof in that sense, because let's picture the situation. If I take a 10 billion naira bribe or embezzlement, if I embezzle 10 billion as a public servant, and I keep 5 billion for the settlement of whoever comes after me, and then of course people come after me, the policemen come, EFCC comes, the prosecutors come, the judges come, and everywhere I drop, a few hundred millions. And then, assuming the bribe code is enforced, every time I pay a bribe, somebody knows. The bank I collect the money from, the person I bribed, the mistress of the person I bribed, the brother of the person I bribed, my wife, my girlfriend, somebody knows. And every time somebody knows about a billion naira bribe or a billion naira deal, you widen the scope of people who can whistleblow for reward. So the judge who takes money, no matter how big the money is liable to losing everything. And every time you say, oh, I'll simply pay a bribe, the community of people who are ready to take a bribe and risk their entire fortune. Remember, you're not just risking the money you're going to take in bribe, you're risking everything you've ever worked for. And even if you think you've hidden money in Swiss bank, the Swiss bankers can get a percentage of your money by whistleblowing on you. So it is foolproof in that sense, because with the current system we have, set up another EFCC, I call it EFCC Mark 3. You have to appoint a chairman. You, the appointer, have power over the chairman. The chairman will not come after you or your friends. He will not come after your political party. He will not. So there is that impunity built into the current system. No matter the policeman, super cop, whatever, there is corruption built into it. Bribe code is foolproof in that sense. You are recruiting 200 million Nigerians and any other foreigners who are interested in our business. You are recruiting private companies who will set up for no other business but to investigate and collect information on bribes. And so you have that police force that is bigger than any police force in the world, better motivated than any police force in the world. That is number one. The private sector, you have keyed in the private sector into anti-corruption. It becomes the biggest business in Nigeria. Secondly, you have sharpened the Nigerian legal system to its most efficient, because the next bribe a lawyer, prosecutor, policeman, or judge takes will be his last.
Well, I'm not sure. I do not know if there have been any examples anywhere else, but parts of it which you speak of, which is the whistleblowing part of it, we've seen a bit of it work in Nigeria. It came up for a bit and then it just died down. So some people will say that we have tried aspects of the bribe code and it hasn't quite worked. It worked efficiently a few times, but that was it. We didn't hear anything about it again. It hasn't gone on. Why do you think it died?
Well, first of all, it died because it's a policy. And a policy is something you wake up and start doing, and the day you don't want to do it, you stop it. If you install a bribe code as an anti-corruption toolkit in Nigeria's system, you cannot just wake up and say, I'm not interested in prosecuting it. Whether you want to pursue it or not, it's working. It's driven by the people, the institutions, and the 37 attorney generals. It's simply there in the system. And so it's not a matter, right now, the whistleblowing concept which you proposed in the bribe code was not something that the Ministry of Finance can put in the pocket. The policy of the federal government is driven by the Ministry of Finance, which is also a key part of the corruption in our system. Because after all, who designs the budget? And that is the beginning of the entire problems of Nigeria. So we have a system where you have, what we designed was a system that operates independently of the ministry. It's something that's in the judicial system, and it's decentralized because you have 37 departments, 37 federal high courts in Nigeria. And if you have a whistleblowing system, which no one person can control, for instance, the policy of the federal government was that if I bring information, the government still has to decide whether it's new information. Of course, they can say, well, we knew about it all along, we just didn't want to act. And therefore, that's the end of that. I have taken a risk and I've got nothing. So under the bribe code, the administration of the whistleblowing system is different. But even with the defects that have been identified with the federal government policy, the whistleblowing policy, it's still clearly the most successful of the anti-corruption programs that have ever been run in this country, I dare say. I mean, I stand to be corrected, but...
Is bribe code going to happen outside of Nigeria's judiciary?
No, we're going to use the judiciary. Now, here's an amazing thing. Nigerian lawyers and judges excel all over the world. Across the world, where our judges are fantastic jurists, our lawyers are brilliant practitioners. Only one thing damages our system, it's the Nigerian system. The bribe code is the antibiotic that will fix the system. If you have noticed, corruption loves inefficiency. If the judicial system is slow, it needs greasing. It's the same thing in the civil service. Corruption, if there's a possibility of corruption, things will slow down. And that's what happens once we fix the real problem. We'll find out that things will move a little bit faster. If money is budgeted for the judicial system, it will not be embezzled.
I want to ask you how you think that the sentiment for profit share or the incentive for profit will override cultural barriers, the culture of loyalty, so to speak.
What sort of loyalty? Is it loyalty to, there was a picture some time ago about, can you hear me very well?
I can.
Okay, so there was a picture recently about a civil servant who was accused of stealing hundreds of millions of naira. And the picture of where he hid his money was also on the news. And it was a picture of a yard where his extended family was living in clear penury. I think that most of the time, this culture, we think it's a culture where your relatives will not rat you out or blow the whistle on you because there's a perceived loyalty. That loyalty will not exist, I assure you. If there's a possibility that a stranger will blow the whistle and earn the millions in reward that an insider could have earned, I tell you that insider will blow the whistle quietly. The bribe code provides for information to be sold to companies that deal in information, so that companies can set up, for instance, a company can set up as an investigation company, and all it's doing is receiving secret information from secret sources. And those sources are, I assure you, the sources that are so close to the insider.
Part of what you're trying to stop with the bribe code is this get-rich-quick syndrome, which is almost pervading every area of society. How do you think that this will eventually stop that syndrome?
Yes, I think there's a perception in our system that if I don't steal it, somebody else will. And that is what the bribe code is out to sort out. So what we have is the get-rich-quick syndrome is a syndrome that it tells anybody who goes into a position of authority or power or opportunity that if you don't steal, someone else will. Now the bribe code changes the entire system and reverses it. The system becomes, if you steal, you win. And if we get that as an ethic, that becomes our national ethic. And it will translate and replace the national ethic of complete abandonment in the place of ostentation and get-rich-quick. So the ritual murders that we see on our streets will fade because the law and order will be the first beneficiary of the bribe code. We've seen what happens with the super cops when we begin to trust in strong individuals and strong institutions. Strong individuals are bought. Strong institutions are captured. But if we create a system where every Nigerian becomes the whistleblower and every Attorney General and every Minister of Justice becomes a prosecutor, we have transformed our country and created a system whereby the ritual murders, the get-rich-quick, all of these will fade away. And once we get to a situation where the only way you can survive in a bribe code culture is by hiding all your money, you begin to ask yourself, why did you steal the money? If you have to now live a lifestyle that hides ill-gotten wealth, you have removed the first incentive to steal.
Mr. Chuma Nwokolo, thank you for speaking to us on Hard Copy.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, Mope.
That's our program tonight. We welcome your suggestions and thoughts to the handles showing on your screen.
Thank you so much for your patience to watch from the beginning to the end. I hope you have learned something from the video you have just watched. The video you have just watched is to bring information to your doorstep and for educational purpose. It is not to demonize anybody. Let us watch continuously and see who can be able to make a sense out of every nonsense we are seeing. We must continue. We move. It doesn't matter what they do. It doesn't matter what they say. They will kill us. We will kill them. At the end of the day, Biafra is here. Thank you for watching. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please kindly subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so that you're notified each time I upload a video. You will be among the first to receive it. Thank you and remain blessed. Bye-bye. See you again.